Was blessed.
Yeah.
I wanted to, but you were talking about deconstruction, and you asked me a question,
Okay.
and you said to explain what I meant
Okay, come on.
without having to create a bathysphere or a decompression chamber. I don't want to do that.
All right.
What I am suggesting is when 2003 is one of the mantras I heard from you repeatedly is trust no one.
Trust no one. That's
Trust
right.
nothing.
That's right.
Check, recheck, double check
And
again.
check again.
Now you got to know how to do that.
That's right.
Okay, so that's what I mean about all these thoughts have been constructed basically for me because for a long time I never thought to question some things.
All right.
Even though I was a little unusual, I was a boy that asked why. And I got a lot of trouble about it. But after I asked why, I still didn't know how to check.
Right.
You know, because I would usually get the incorrect answer, so I get told to shut
So
up.
now, what we're doing with these young people is actually introducing them to the process that we as older people have a problem with learning. You see, if they learn young enough, they're not going to have a problem with learning. If they learn young enough. But if you wait till you get to be our age, now we're going to have all these kinds of difficulties and problems. So now if we're going to deconstruct something, what is it that we're deconstructing and how are we going to do it?
You deconstructing a white man's word.
Okay, fine, but how are we going to do it? Because I'll tell you what, Malcolm said one thing to me that I heard him say. He said, if I had it to do all over again, I'd have to find another way to do this. You know why? And he sent a whole bunch of y'all to the mental institutions. Now, I think that we should take that seriously. In other words, we do not want to take anybody too quickly. I have tried to do my best to warn everybody, slow down. Don't be in such a rush to go too fast. If you don't slow down and if you keep trying to go at all these breakneck speeds because you think, you're just smarter than everybody and you're capable and you want everyone to understand what it is that you're understanding, you're going to hurt a lot of people.
And yourself?
Probably. I don't know, but probably. And I'm also suggesting that a lot of times we hurt ourselves without ever knowing that we hurt ourselves. I am suggesting that you are moving on the edge of a razor blade. They call it the razor's edge. When you slip and fall, what usually happens when you cut yourself with a razor? Here's the thing. In some cases, you may not even know you've been cut. And you may not start to bleed immediately. And you will slowly bleed to death. So what we have to learn how to do is we have to learn how to be responsible with this thing that you're hollering and screaming about for deconstruction. How long has this construct been being put in place?
At least 12,000 years.
No. We don't want to deal with that one. The only thing, me personally, only thing I'm interested in is the inception of the country that I was born in. That's where we can start. And we can start there comfortably. If we start back with Australopithecus, man, you tell me what a troglodyte is. How many troglodytes are actually in your presence every day? Well, you see, eventually you're going to have to deal with Ramapithecus. You're going to have to deal with a whole bunch of the steps of man evolving into what you are. Hello? Are you following me? But that's why what I'm suggesting is, I know where you might want to start. But
I'm talking about civilization. That's what
I know that. And what I'm suggesting is that most of us cannot start there. The only reason that people like you or Thurman and a couple of other people might be able to go there is because you read excessively. But understand something. I'm asking everybody again. I'm asking everybody again. Don't go there because you didn't do the basic foundational work. So now it's good that you have had the experience and you've been there. That's great. But now do the foundational work. Once you do the foundational work, now you have a resource to utilize in what you're thinking. But the average person has no idea about that part of this whole thing being constructed from there. In other words, from the point of creating civilization, we got to come to just the point of inventing language, just the point of inventing writing and the graphics that you put up. Most of us are not dealing with this. We don't know anything about language. So we don't want to start in such a point that, see, they're not teaching our children anything about the basics. Nothing. So now we've got to go back and we've got to embrace the basics, the fundamentals for ourselves. Tell me about troglodyte.
Speak up.
It is language. Mom takes into roll a cave to
Well,
A what? A cave what? Oh, like yo. I mean, seriously, didn't they teach you when you were going to school that you were cavemen?
we're descendants.
You're descendants from cavemen.
Yeah.
Now this is weird because I always hear folks telling me something about y'all from Egypt and Africa and all these things, right? Well, if y'all from Egypt and Africa and all this stuff, why were y'all living in caves? No, really. All you had to do was go out there and be under a tree and reach up and get a banana. You didn't need any clothing or anything. And boy, you could be comfortable. And the people that was living in caves, 9 times out of 10, they was living in there because it was cold out there. And then think how amazing it was when they actually learned how to create and cause and how to have a fire. And then later they said that one in Greece or somewhere that someone wrote about the caveman. And he said that they were in the cave and then one of them actually went outside the cave, right? What do you call the story? Oh, it's Plato's cave. And he described it how. He described the story how. He said one of them actually went out there and said, came back in and said, ain't nothing going on out there, it's okay.
Yeah, because they were afraid to.
Yeah, but everybody was ready to kill him.
Sounds like a lot of folks I know. That's happened to.
So now, someone taught us Plato's cave, right? All right, come on now, you went to Rhodes. Where did they get Plato's cave from?
I know it's out of the Republic.
It's what?
I know it's an allegory in the Republic.
Okay, no problem. But you talking about in the Greek Republic?
This was Plato in Greece.
Okay, Plato. Well, okay, how did they find it?
The story you made.
Yes, Plato, a story about Plato. They found it some kind of way. Who found it? Who found it? That's right. Come on, somebody tell me. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to tell these children not to read Plato's Cave. I want them to read it. But I also want them to know that most of what you were taught in school about what Aristotle and Plato and all these folks actually made up and created this whole modern thing, it's a lie. Now, how do I know that it's a lie?
How do you know that it's a lie?
I bothered to do what Jim James was asking everybody in this room to do. I bothered to try to examine this well enough to know that they didn't have typewriters. This is what Jim James was suggesting. They didn't have typewriters at the time of Aristotle and Plato. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
They didn't have. How many works are they giving Aristotle credit for?
A lot.
They didn't have computers. They didn't have typewriters, right? Now, when you sit down and you actually examine how much they're giving him credit for, how long would it have taken him to handwrite that out?
Few lifetimes.
Few lifetimes. Well, how is it possible then, if that's the case? Now, in other words, there are ways that you can actually ask yourself questions and you can determine for yourself what something is actually saying to you. Where did the information, when did the information first come into existence in Western academia?